Good evening, jolly tea drinkers. Welcome back to Bedtime Tea, one more steep before sleep. A cozy place to hear a relaxing sleep story for adults. These stories will help you unwind, quiet your mind, and drift into a peaceful rest. So go ahead, grab your cup of tea, your cozy blanket, get comfortable, and allow me the honor of reading you a story. Ready to begin? Tonight, we continue with part 2 of The Case of the Evil Twin. If you missed part 1, be sure to check out our Bedtime Tea playlist to catch up. And now, let's begin The Case of the Evil Twin, Part 2. Chapter 5. The afternoon was unusually busy that day. It seemed as though the crowd really started to pick up as soon as Mr. Coffee, Paulina, and Samantha left. Oh, of course, this would happen the day I decide to give Paulina time off, Miss T said to herself as she rushed between the tables and the kitchen. She was carrying a couple of cups and plates when a spoon fell from her hand. No, oh come on, she muttered to herself. She was about to bend down to retrieve it when a man picked it up for her. Here, let me get that for you, he said. Oh, thank you, replied Miss T. No worries. I thought you could use... He stopped abruptly as he stood up and looked at her in wonder. A hand, he said. Thanks again. I appreciate it. She awkwardly attempted to take the spoon, but then gave up. Would you mind placing that spoon inside of one of these cups, please? She nodded with her head toward the cup. Can I help you carry something? He asked. No, it's all right. I think I can make it. She continued to awkwardly balance the items in her hand. Please, let me help you, the man pleaded. My grandmother would have my head for not helping a lady in distress. I'm not in distress, said Miss T. Well then good, I'd like to keep it that way, he chuckled. He motioned to the dishes in her hands and said, May I? Miss T exhaled and said, Oh, sure. The man gently took the dishes from her hands and looked at her. Miss T finally took a moment to look at him. She didn't realize just how distracted she was until he said, Miss, where would you like me to place these? He said with a smile. Huh? Oh, you can place them on the counter over there. She quickly walked to the counter. The man followed her and placed the dishes down where she asked. Thanks again, she said. I can take it from here. Happy to help, he said. This is my first time visiting this cafe. Is it usually this busy? It varies, said Miss T with a smile. But welcome and thank you for stopping by. She started placing the dishes into a tray to be washed. You must serve the best tea in town, he said. Well, I'd like to think so, but I'm a little biased because I'm the owner, she said with a chuckle. Get out. You own this amazing place? He said in admiration as he looked around. I do, said Miss T. Welcome to my humble little tea shop. Don't sell yourself short. This place is incredible. He looked around and said, It's cozy, warm, and inviting. He looked back at her and she smiled. And I can't wait to taste the tea. I bet it's extraordinary. Miss T immediately stopped smiling. Thank you for stopping by. I'm just going to bring this tray into the kitchen. She turned to leave. Did I say something wrong? Wait. I didn't even order anything yet. Using his voice, he pleaded with her to stop. She took a deep breath and turned to face him. I'm sorry. That was rude of me. Having a bit of a stressful day. Hey, it happens to the best of us, he said gently. My name is Oliver. He placed his hand on his chest. May I ask what your name is? Hello, Oliver. My name is Alina, but everyone around here calls me Miss T. Alina, he repeated. What a beautiful name. Thank you, and I'm sorry for my rudeness a few moments ago. May I offer you one of our delicious teas on the house? First of all, you are not rude, nor do I believe for a minute that you are even capable of being rude. He smiled, and she smiled back. You've only just met me. How do you know? Your eyes, he said. They locked eyes for a brief moment. She looked away and said, So, how about that tea? He cleared his throat. Yes, I would very much like to try some. Oh, let me get you a menu. No need. Why don't you surprise me? He said. Okay, one fun surprise coming right up, she said cheerfully. She placed the tray down and off to the side. Then she pulled a clean cup and saucer from underneath the counter and placed them down in front of Oliver. He sat down on one of the stools and watched her. So, I'm sorry that you're having such a stressful day. Is there anything I can do to help? He asked. She smiled, lifted a kettle from the other side of the counter, and proceeded to pour tea into the cup. No, I'm afraid not, but thank you so much for the offer, said Miss T. Well, do you want to talk about it? I'm a great listener. How about we talk about you? Are you new to town? She pulled a cupcake from the bakery case and placed it on a second plate in front of him. Ooh, a cupcake, he chuckled. So I would call you out for trying to avoid my question, but lucky for you, I happen to like the fact that you want to get to know me better, and I happen to love cupcakes. He began peeling the paper off of the cupcake. Miss T laughed. He stopped and watched her in fascination. Anyone ever tell you how beautiful you are when you laugh? She chuckled. Nope. So will that be all, Oliver? I really should get back to my work in the kitchen. No, couldn't you stay and chat with me a little longer, please? Or hire me so that I can hang out with you in the kitchen while you work? He took a large bite of the cupcake, leaving some frosting on his cheek. Miss T laughed. Come on, you can't be that desperate for company. She gave him a napkin. He wiped his face, but there was still frosting there. You'd be surprised. I just drove for 24 hours in my food truck to get here, by myself. This cupcake is really good, by the way. Thanks, she smiled, held up a napkin and said, May I? He nodded. She gently wiped his face while he watched her. There, she said, and put the napkin in the trash. Thank you, he said softly. You're welcome. So, 24 hours in a food truck? She asked. I take it you must be part of the Wellington Food Truck Festival this weekend. He shook himself out of his stupor and said, Yes, I am. My truck is parked right outside. I hope you don't mind. No, that should be fine for now. But then shouldn't you be out there selling food instead of in here wasting time with me? Alina, You are not a waste of time. I can't imagine you ever being a waste of anyone's time, he said sincerely, looking into her eyes. She smiled, then quickly busied herself with wiping down the counter. So, what kind of food do you sell on your truck? He smiled and stared at her intently for a moment before answering. I sell cupcakes. What? No way, you're just messing with me, she replied. I promise I'm telling you the truth. I make and sell cupcakes. He took another bite. If you want, maybe after your shift you can come take a look at my truck? Yes, yeah, I'd like to see it, sure, she said. Good, he smiled and popped the last part of the cupcake into his mouth. These are so good. I might need to hire you, take you on the road with me. Miss T chuckled. You've got chocolate all over your teeth. You know, normally I would be embarrassed, but I never get to eat cupcakes, so this is really fun for me. He wiped his mouth with a napkin. You never get to eat cupcakes? But you're baking them every day. You never sneak even one? He wiped his mouth with the napkin again and said, What's that line from that movie? Something like, never get high on your own supply? He chuckled. It's bad for business. Miss T laughed. Oliver watched her. He smiled and said, So you sell cupcakes and tea here? Not usually, no. It's just a sort of a limited time offer. Her eyes looked sadly off into the distance. Oh, hey. He gently grabbed a hold of her hand. His eyes searched her face. Come back to me. Sorry, I'm fine. Like I said, just a stressful day. A week, really. What made you so sad just now? He asked, concerned. Oliver, you do realize that we are basically strangers, right? She chuckled. But I thank you for your concern. You are being very sweet. She patted his hand and pulled away. So, can I get you anything else? He took a deep breath, stood up, and said, Yes. He extended his hand and gently took hers again. Alina, I know that we just met, but you are captivating, and I would really like to spend some more time getting to know you. Miss T was speechless. Does your silence mean no? Should I crawl back to my truck and leave town right away? He joked uneasily. Miss T chuckled and said, No, no, I shouldn't leave town, or no, you don't want to go out with me. He chuckled. Wait, you're asking me out? Yes, unless the answer is truly no, because in that case, I was only kidding. He chuckled. Miss T laughed. Are you sure you want to go out with me? I mean, I do tend to talk a whole lot about tea. And I look forward to every moment of that conversation. He smiled and leaned forward. So are you free tonight after work? Tonight? You don't play around, do you? She chuckled. I'm only in town for a few days, so I don't have a lot of time to waste, he said with a smile. So, is that a yes? She giggled. Yes. Alina, you just made my day. Actually, I think you just made my whole week. Okay, now you're pushing it, she chuckled. Oh, Snapples, I just remembered. I'm closing tonight. That means I won't be finished until around 9 or so. That's okay, I just want the chance to sit and talk with you. We could do that right here if you want. Miss T looked at him for a moment and then said, You know what? You can come into the kitchen with me, and we can talk while I work. Yeah, really? I get like an all-access pass? He quickly gulped down his tea, jumped up from the stool and walked around to the other side of the counter. You get a pass to the kitchen. She removed his cup and plates from the counter and placed them in the tray. But I warn you, it may not be all that exciting for you. He gently held her hand again and said, "You greatly underestimate how completely fascinating you are, Alina." She smiled, let go of his hand, and reached for the tray. "I can take that for you," he offered, and then gently took the tray filled with dishes. "And before you disagree, I know you're strong enough to handle it. I just wanted a chance to help the extraordinary Miss T." She stopped and exhaled. "Oliver, the first thing you should know about me is that I can't stand that word." "Wait, which word?" He paused to think. "Extra." "Don't say it. That's the word. No need to repeat it. Just ban it from your vocabulary and we'll get along just fine. Got it?" She smiled at him. "Got it," smiled Oliver. Miss T chuckled and walked into the kitchen. Oliver followed behind her. Chapter 6. Paulina, Mr. Coffee, and Samantha watched the end of the scene play out through the window outside. They just arrived back from their shopping trip and were both shocked and confused by what they saw. "And you say you have no idea who that guy is?" asked Samantha. "No, I've never seen him before in my life," said Paulina. "Ooh, looks like Lily has a secret boyfriend." She looked at Mr. Coffee. "No way, she would have told me," said Paulina. "Would she really? Keyword secret," said Samantha. "You don't know Miss T like I do," said Paulina. "There's no way she'd be able to keep a secret like that from me." Hello. I'm her twin sister, and you only just found out that I existed, what, a week ago?" "That was different," said Paulina. "How? Your supposed bestie left out crucial life information. Can you trust that she's not keeping any other secrets?" said Samantha. "I gotta go," said Mr. Coffee. He quickly turned to leave. "Wait, can I catch a ride? I want to take my stuff to the house and plan out my whole look," said Samantha. "Sure," Mr. Coffee exhaled. "Paulina, are you going to stay here or go with us?" "I think," said Paulina, uncertain. Samantha interrupted and said, "She already gave you the time off. Maybe we should go get mani-pedis too." "I don't know. It looks really busy in there," said Paulina as she looked around. "Why don't you go, drop your shopping bags at home, and then you can come back," said Samantha. "Look, whoever's going," said Sean, "just meet me back at the car." And he walked away. "Come on, Polly, let's go and come back. She'll be fine," said Samantha. She led Paulina away from the window and followed Mr. Coffee to his car. Chapter 7. The time passed swiftly in the kitchen. Miss T couldn't remember the last time she had so much fun while working. Oliver had her smiling and laughing so much that her cheeks hurt. They were actually sore. He even offered to help her bake cupcakes, and they were now cheerfully working side by side in the kitchen. "I can't believe you've never done it," said Miss T. "Hey, I have a good excuse. I'm usually on the road in a truck," said Oliver. "When would I ever get the chance to do that?" They laughed. "Surely you have time to rest, like vacations or something?" she asked. "Only when I'm sick, which is never, by the way," he chuckled. "Oh, wow," she laughed. "I mean, it's great that you don't get sick, but that lack of rest? Tisk tisk, young man," she teased. "Okay, when was the last time you took a vacation, huh?" He stopped and looked at her. She said as she avoided eye contact. Look at you. You won't even look me in the eyes. He attempted to get her to look at him, but she avoided it, and they laughed. So what's your excuse for not taking breaks? He said. Well, this is probably going to sound weird, she said shyly. Alina, you can feel free to tell me anything, said Oliver. Plus, I doubt there's anything you could say that would be all that weird. I don't know, she said. How about you say what's on your mind, and I'll try my best to not make you feel awkward, he smiled at her. She smiled, picked up a cupcake, and held it gently in the palm of her hand. It's like this cafe it's my baby, and I don't want to just leave it in the hands of anyone else while I go hang out on a beach for 7 days. She looked up at him and said, Is that weird? That's not weird at all, he said. I feel the same way about my food truck. He gently took the cupcake from her hands and placed it on the counter. I think the important thing is that you understand, that we both understand, that breaks are important. He held her hand. From the looks of things, it seems like we could both use more rest. But I proudly live by the motto, I'll rest when I'm dead, she said with a chuckle. Don't make me change my motto. I personally have also lived by that motto, he replied, and stepped closer to her. But I think I'm finally ready to change it. Are you? She said with a chuckle. She let go of his hand, stepped away, and reached for a couple of storage containers. But if I'm off somewhere resting, who will do all of the things? She handed one of the containers to him. Someone else, he said playfully. They began placing the cupcakes in the containers. So you would let someone else run your business for a week, bake your cupcakes, and drive your food truck up and down the East Coast while you took a vacation? She asked. He winced and said, Yes? See? She pointed at him and laughed. There is no way you would ever allow that. He rubbed his hands on his face and said, I just need time to figure it out first. Oh yeah? And how long will it take for you to figure that out? She teased. Another year or so? Don't be ridiculous, he insisted. It would take at least 5. He went to the sink and washed his hands. 5 years? She asked. At least, he chuckled. We need serious help, don't we? She chuckled. We really do. He stepped closer and held her hand. Good thing we met today. We can help each other. Hey, Miss T, did you need any help in here? Said Paulina, who paused when she entered the kitchen. She looked curiously between Miss T and Oliver. Hello. Oh, hey, Paulina, said Miss T. How was your shopping trip? Hey, it was good, said Paulina. She motioned towards their hands. And what do we have here? Miss T looked down at their hands and let go shyly. Oliver, meet Paulina, one of my best friends and co-workers. Paulina, I'd like you to meet my new friend, Oliver. Hello, nice to meet you, said Oliver with a smile. Hello, Oliver, said Paulina. Must be a good new friend if he's allowed in the kitchen. I was given an all-access pass, he joked. Really? Said Paulina. She looked at Miss T with surprise. Yeah, it would probably be best if you didn't go around telling people that, Miss T giggled and went back to the cupcakes. Sorry, I was excited, he chuckled. About access to a kitchen? She chuckled. Hey, this is a great kitchen. Have you seen it? He said. I mean, do you know how many cupcakes I could make in this kitchen? The 100 or so that we made in the last 4 hours, she retorted. Yes, we're a cupcake making dynamic duo, said Oliver. He gave her a high five and said, we're like superheroes. Saving the world one cupcake at a time, said Miss T. Sometimes with sprinkles, said Oliver. They laughed gleefully. Paulina watched them both with confusion. I'll just be out there cleaning up if you need me, and then slowly left the kitchen. Chapter 8. Paulina exited the kitchen and walked slowly to the counter where Mr. Coffee was seated. He looked up at her nervously and said, Uh-oh, okay, how bad is it? I wouldn't say bad, she hedged. What does that mean? It means that she's fine. Great even, said Paulina. She's not mad at us? He asked hopefully. She was laughing up a storm when I was in there. Paulina pointed her thumb at the kitchen. So then what's the problem? Asked Mr. Coffee. The problem is that she's laughing up a storm in there with Oliver. With who? Oliver, the guy we saw her with earlier. The guy she was with earlier? Oh. Sean looked away. Yeah, she said with a nod. You should see them. It's like they've known each other forever. She winced and said, on second thought, maybe you shouldn't see them. Who is this guy? Asked Sean. Where did he even come from? All I know is that he's a new friend. Paulina shrugged her shoulders. So what, they just met? Yup. And now they're all spending time together in the kitchen? Yup. You've got to be kidding me. He tapped the counter restlessly. I'm not. Hey, where's Samantha? Paulina asked, and she looked around. I don't know. She said she was going for a walk, said Mr. Coffee. So what's the deal with this Oliver guy? What's so special about him? I have no idea. They were just in there laughing, making jokes and cupcakes. Cupcakes? She's still making cupcakes? He asked. Yep. Only this time she seems to be happy about it. Paulina continued cleaning up around the counter. Speaking of cupcakes, did you know that Charlie, the baker next door, has been complaining all week about the fact that we are now selling cupcakes? He thinks we're trying to steal his business. He's been harassing us daily, trying to get us to stop. Really? Said Sean. Do you need my help to get him to stop? I don't know. You'd have to talk to Miss T, said Paulina. Well, she doesn't seem to be in the mood to talk to me lately. Maybe I should just go in there and introduce myself to this guy. He stood up just as the kitchen door opened. Miss T and Oliver walked out of the kitchen and stopped at the counter. Oh, hey, Sean. This is my new friend, Oliver. Oliver, this is Sean, said Miss T. Hey, man, said Oliver warmly. He extended his hand to Mr. Coffee, who hesitated for a moment before he shook his hand and said, Hey. Oliver owns the food truck that's parked outside, said Miss T. And guess what he sells on that truck? Cupcakes. Oh, now it makes sense, said Paulina as she nodded her head. Huh, replied Mr. Coffee. Cupcakes. That's great. Isn't it? Said Miss T. He's about to give me a tour of his truck right now. I'll be right back. Nice meeting you both, said Oliver with a small wave as they walked away. Okay, well, I'll finish cleaning up here and prepare to close, said Paulina. Oh, that would be great, thank you, said Miss T. And I can give you all a ride home after, said Mr. Coffee. He crossed his arms nervously. Thanks, said Miss T. She and Oliver walked toward the front door. It's closing time, huh? Asked Oliver. We better make this tour quick so that you can go home and get your beauty rest. Not like you need any. Miss T laughed and said, Oh, Oliver, please. He opened the door for her and they walked outside, laughing. Yes, Oliver, please stop, said Sean grumpily. He sat back down at the counter. I mean, who is this guy? I don't know, said Paulina, but he seems to be just as sweet and corny as she is. It's like a match made in heaven. Sorry, Sean. She wiped the counters and moved around the cafe, wiping down the tables. It's just so ridiculously unfair, said Sean. Let's look at it this way, said Paulina. He may be giving her a little tour right now, but you get to bring her home. Oh, please, that doesn't mean anything. She's just going to be all quiet in the car, and when I ask her if everything is all right, she'll say yes, and then tomorrow morning, she'll be right back in that kitchen making 1,000,000 cupcakes again. I don't get it. He banged his hands on the counter. It's like, I know there's a problem, but I can't seem to figure out what it is or how to fix it. He rubbed his head with frustration. At this point, I'm pretty sure I could tell you exactly what the problem is, said Paulina. The door opened and in walked Samantha holding a paper cup. They both watched her with confusion. Is that a to-go cup from the bakery next door? Asked Mr. Coffee. Yeah, I was walking by when the owner offered me one of their cookies, so I decided to also try a hot beverage, said Samantha. A hot beverage? Repeated Sean. You mean tea? Said Paulina. Yeah, but not just any tea. Charlie said that it's some kind of special blend, said Samantha with a shrug. It sounded good, so I decided to give it a try. Have you lost your mind? Asked Paulina. You went to a rival shop and purchased their tea? Are you crazy? Asked Sean. First of all, I don't appreciate being called crazy, said Samantha. Second of all, what? It's just tea. Chill out. Just tea? Asked Sean. Did you forget that your sister owns this tea cafe? And Charlie the baker has been giving her grief all week, said Paulina. So not only did you go somewhere else to buy tea, you went to her loathsome enemy to do it, and then brought the ill-advised purchase back with you into her cafe. Samantha froze and said, Oh. Yeah, that's right. Oh. And if your sister comes back in here and sees you holding that cup, she's gonna lose her tea leaves, said Paulina with her hand on her hip. What were you thinking? Crazy, said Mr. Coffee as he shook his head. Oh, well, I didn't actually buy it, said Samantha. He basically just put it in my hand. I thought he was just being nice. Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing, said Mr. Coffee. He knew she'd bring that cup in here with her. You think so? Asked Paulina. I had no idea Charlie was that devious. Samantha gasped. You mean he was just using me to cause trouble with my sister? I was a pawn? I feel so used. Mr. Coffee and Paulina exchanged a skeptical look. The front door to the cafe opened. Well, you better get rid of that cup right now because here she comes, whispered Paulina. Miss T entered the cafe and walked towards them. Oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh, whispered Samantha. She looked around in a panic and then shoved the cup at Mr. Coffee and said, Here, you take it, she demanded. What, me? No way. He pushed it back at her. Come on, you guys are friends. She'll forgive you, said Samantha. She pushed the cup at him. I'm not taking the fall for this one, Samantha, said Sean. He pushed the cup back into her hands. But you and I are also friends, aren't we? Samantha said, using a different tactic. Can't you do me a favor, friend? She smiled at him. No, he said. They pushed the cup back and forth between each other. The cup ended up in Sean's hands as Miss T approached the counter with a smile. That was the coolest food truck I have ever seen, said Miss T. You guys should have seen the inside. There was... Her eyes drifted to the cup and she stopped speaking mid-sentence. Her smile dropped instantly. Sean attempted to hide the cup behind his back. What's that? Miss T asked. What's what? Replied Samantha with a smile. That cup that Sean is foolishly attempting to hide behind his back, Miss T said with frustration. Why is it here? Who brought that in here? You ask some very good questions, said Mr. Coffee. I cannot tell a lie. It was Samantha. He pushed the drink into Samantha's hands and quickly stepped away from her. Ooh, you are such a snitch, yelled Samantha. I thought we were friends. Call me what you want, said Sean, but I just want to stress for the record, Alina, that I had absolutely nothing to do with this. Of course you didn't, she looked at Samantha and said. I know who the troublemaker is. Samantha, can I see you in the kitchen, please? Miss T walked into the kitchen. Oh, you're in trouble now, said Paulina as she tried to hide a smirk. Samantha gave her an annoyed look, turned to Mr. Coffee and said, Thanks a lot, friend. She slammed the cup down on the counter, then walked into the kitchen. Chapter 9. Samantha slowly and cautiously peeked her head through the kitchen door. Miss T was packing up cupcakes on the counter. Hey, said Samantha. Miss T didn't respond. She continued working on the cupcakes. Samantha went further into the kitchen. You know what? I'm going to be the bigger person here and squash this argument. It's a simple misunderstanding, right? I was simply taking a walk when the bakery guy offered me a cookie and something to drink. He seemed really nice and he gave it to me for free. He told me that I have a beautiful smile. How could I say no to that? It's really not my fault. But I just learned that apparently he was trying to get back at you for something. Look, I am an innocent victim in all of this. A pawn used against you, my own sister. I had no idea. But now that I know, we can fight this together. She extended her arms out to Miss T and said, Sisters united. Miss T turned around to face her and said, Are you finished? Yeah, said Samantha. She clasped her hands together and said, So we're good, right? Good, said Miss T. No, we're not good. She slowly stepped closer to Samantha, who took a nervous step back away from her. We are so far from good. I don't think you even know what good is. Okay, I'm sensing some aggression here, said Samantha. Maybe we need to take a moment, sit and talk calmly, perhaps over some tea. Tea? Tea? Said Alina. Or coffee? said Samantha. She backed up in an effort to try to escape her sister. Listen, Lily, I don't know what's going on with you, but clearly you are stressed and you need some time to calm down. So I'm just going to be out there with Polly and Shawnee until you're good. She turned to leave. Miss T grabbed her arm and said, No, I don't think so. Ow, Lily, let go of my arm. Stop calling me that. I hate that name. Well, why didn't you ever say something? I did. You just don't listen to me. Why are you yelling at me? Samantha asked innocently. Because I'm tired of you, Samantha. You've been nothing but a nuisance since you've gotten to town. You are so exasperating. What are you talking about? I'm a joy to be around. Who told you that lie? Said Alina. Samantha continued to defend herself. Everyone loves me. Your friends sure do. As a matter of fact, they've spent way more time hanging out with me this past week than with you. What do you think about that? She gloated. Well, I have a job. I run a business. I don't have time to run around aimlessly with you all day. So my friends have been kind enough to spend time with you so that you don't feel ignored and end up running amok around town. That's what I think. You just don't want to admit that your friends like me better than you, Samantha replied. It's always been that way. Look at you. You're boring. You dress boring. You have a boring personality. And you run a boring business. Who would want to spend any time with you? Outraged, Alina grabbed a cupcake and smashed it into Samantha's face. Samantha squawked in surprise, which quickly morphed into anger. Oh! She grabbed a cupcake from the counter and smashed it in Miss T's face. She gasped. The sisters paused, locked eyes furiously, then commenced grabbing and throwing cupcakes at each other, loudly knocking things over in the process. Meanwhile, back at the cafe counter, just outside of the kitchen, Mr. Coffee and Paulina stared at each other with wide eyes as they listened to the commotion coming from the kitchen. Do you think we should go in there? Asked Sean nervously. I'm not sure, said Paulina. She scratched her head. Isn't this something that they need to sort of work out between themselves? That doesn't sound like they're working things out to me, said Sean. Let's just give them a few more minutes before we go charging in there, Batman. Sheesh. Meanwhile, back in the kitchen, Samantha threw a cupcake and it hit Miss T square in the face. Ow! Alina quickly wiped her eyes, grabbed another cupcake and threw it, but Samantha ducked. She looked behind her and said, Ha! Look at that! You missed! As she turned back around, a cupcake hit her on the chin. Oops, said Alina playfully. Is that the best you can do? Samantha scoffed. She picked up multiple cupcakes and said, This is how you fight! She began to throw cupcakes rapid fire at Alina. Miss T ducked her head, grabbed cupcakes, and threw them wildly at her sister. We are wasting my cupcakes! Wait! Samantha stopped and yelled, Cease fire! Cease fire! The sisters paused. What am I doing? I shouldn't be throwing cupcakes at you, said Samantha. This is wrong. Miss T looked at her with surprise and said, Well, I'm glad you've come to your senses. She grabbed a towel and began to wipe her face. What I should be doing, said Samantha, is throwing the cupcakes all over your kitchen. She began to fling cupcakes at the walls and cupboards. She grabbed one of the storage containers and shook the cupcakes out all over the floor. What are you doing? Yelled Miss T. Can't you tell, little Miss Perfect? I'm driving you crazy by making a massive mess in your kitchen. Miss T attempted to grab Samantha's hands to stop her. "Stop this, you insane evil twin!" Samantha pushed her away and yelled, "No, you wanted a cupcake fight? Then you've got a cupcake fight." She grabbed more cupcakes from the containers and threw them all around the kitchen. Miss T grabbed a bowl of frosting, slammed into her sister, and frantically rubbed the frosting all over Samantha's hair and face. "Stop, stop, no, not my hair," yelled Samantha. "Cease and desist, cease and desist." She attempted to cover her hair with her hands. "Consider this your deep conditioning treatment. It's extraordinary," yelled Alina. Samantha pushed Miss T and said, "I just got this done last week. Do you have any idea how much it costs to make my hair look this good?" She looked Alina up and down with disdain. "What am I talking about? Of course you don't. Because you're boring. B-O-R. Alina scooped up a handful of frosting and slammed her hand on Samantha's mouth. "Oh my God!" squealed Samantha. She spit out the frosting. "Lily, you slapped me." "Oh, come on, I didn't really slap you." "Yes, you did. You rammed into me like some kind of jungle animal, and then you slapped me right in the mouth." "Ugh, stop being dramatic. You are such a baby," Alina complained. "I'm the baby?" said Samantha. "I'm not the one who cried for days after my teddy bear went missing." "What are you even talking about? I was 5 when that happened," yelled Miss T. "And let's not even talk about toys when we know that you chopped off all the hair on my Barbie dolls." "Pixie cuts were pretty cool back then," said Samantha. "Plus, I was just getting you back for stealing my Madonna music album." "What? That wasn't me. Mom found it and threw it away," Alina explained. "I don't know how you even got that album in the first place. It had a parental advisory sticker on it." "No, it didn't." "Wait, did it?" Samantha paused to think. "You know, my favorite song on that album was Don't Tell Me." "That tracks," murmured Miss T. "I still listen to it every day on my way to the gym," said Samantha with a faraway smile. Miss T put the bowl on the counter and asked, "You go to the gym every day?" "Well, I meant when I go to the coffee shop next to the gym," Samantha clarified. "You know what's crazy? I just remembered that I actually stole that CD from someone's locker during gym class." Alina threw her hands up in the air with frustration. "But I've evolved since then," said Samantha defensively. "You stole my Janet Jackson CD just 1 week later," yelled Alina. "Okay, so I guess I have evolved since then," said Samantha with a shrug. "Then, a month later, you tried to frame me for stealing one of Bobby Lipton's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures." "That's because you took my pink Power Ranger," Samantha pointed at her. "I never laid hands on your Power Ranger," yelled Alina. "That was your so-called friend Chloe. I told you that I saw her take it, but you didn't believe me." "Chloe told me that you did it," responded Samantha. "Chloe was lying," yelled Alina. "How could you believe her over me?" "She was my best friend," yelled Samantha. "Well, your best friend stole your pink Power Ranger, your Beanie Babies, and your stupid trucker hat when we were in high school," Alina counted off on her fingers. "My trucker hat wasn't stupid. Take that back." Samantha threw a cupcake at her face. "Ow! Can we please be done with the cupcake throwing now?" asked Alina. She motioned to the room and said, "I have to clean all this up, and I know that you aren't going to help me." She bent down and started picking up pieces of cupcake from the ground. Samantha watched her sister for a minute, then grabbed a broom and started slowly sweeping. "Am I really a nuisance?" Alina paused. then stood up. Well, she walked over to the trash can and dumped the cake pieces. I think that you just don't always take the time to be aware of the challenges of the people around you. Is that your fancy way of saying that I'm selfish? Well, said Alina as she grabbed the dustpan. Why can't you just say what you're thinking? Samantha chided. And why are you so mad at me? I don't want to hurt your feelings, said Alina. Well, how will I know what I'm doing wrong if you don't tell me? Said Samantha. Plus, it's not like you're purposely trying to hurt my feelings. You're much too nice for that. Miss T paused. I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. What? No, it can't be. It is? Asked Samantha. It's true, said Alina. Is being mean to me so natural that you don't even realize that you're doing it? Samantha shrugged, leaned to the broom on the wall, and then proceeded to sit on the counter. Oh, please, please, no, don't put your bum on the counter, pleaded Miss T. She placed her hands on her head in frustration. What? You were going to clean it anyway, said Samantha. You see, right there, said Alina. This is the kind of stuff you've been doing all week. It's like you don't care about anyone else but yourself. Samantha clapped her hands. Finally, little Miss Perfect speaks what's on her mind. That's the second time you've called me that. I'm not perfect, said Alina. I disagree, said Samantha. All I heard growing up was, why can't you be more like your sister? Samantha jumped off the counter and paced around the kitchen. Alina's so smart. Alina's so nice. Alina can find me that piece of paper I had in my hand yesterday morning. She sat down on the ground grumpily and leaned against a cabinet. I'm sorry, what? Asked Miss T. Miranda Priestley? Come on, woman. When was the last time you watched The Devil Wears Prada? It's been more than several years, replied Miss T. For shame. We used to watch it all the time, remember? Said Samantha. Oh yeah, we did used to love that movie, said Alina. She sat down on the ground near her sister. It was one of the only things we agreed on in high school. Florals? For spring? Groundbreaking. Samantha chuckled and continued to recite lines from the movie. Details of your incompetence do not interest me. Miss T chuckled and said, I'm only one stomach flew away from my goal weight. That's all, said Samantha. The sisters laughed and then quieted for a few moments. Samantha broke the silence. You know how hard it is to live in the shadow of your perfect twin sister? I think it's somehow even worse when you're identical twins. I'm far from perfect, said Alina. Anyway, you always seemed to be on top of the world. Everyone wanted to be around you. You were invited to every party. You never liked spending time with me. If anything, I was in your shadow. What are you talking about? Replied Samantha. People were constantly telling me about your achievements and how great you were since we were like 7. Eventually, it started to feel like every day people were telling me that somehow I wasn't good enough. And let's face it, that's the real reason why I framed you for that ninja turtle. Miss T gasped and then crossed her arms and said, Donatello. Huh? Said Samantha. Donatello was the name of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, said Miss T. You know, you're going to make some nerdy comic book collector very happy one day, said Samantha. How do you even remember that? Miss T chuckled and said, you know what else I remember? I remember when you called Brian Pepperdine, pretended to be me, and broke our date to the junior prom. Samantha's eyes popped open, and she placed her hands over her mouth. Oh my gosh! I forgot all about that, said Samantha. Lily! I totally remember dancing with him at prom too. She covered her mouth again shamefully. Just wrongness, said Alina. She crossed her arms. Oh gosh, I was horrible, wasn't I? Said Samantha. You said it, not me, said Alina. But we're adults now. We have the chance to start fresh, right? Samantha asked insecurely. She placed her hand on Miss T's arm, hopefully. That's what I was hoping, but then look at what actually happened this week, said Alina. She began to stand up, but Samantha stopped her. Wait, said Samantha. Maybe that was because we didn't have a chance to talk like this until now. Hey, are you guys okay? Said Paulina. Her words trailed off just as she entered the kitchen with Mr. Coffee. They looked around the kitchen in shock. What in the world happened here? Asked Sean. He quickly went to Miss T and bent down to check on her. Alina, are you all right? He passed his hand over her face and her arm, checking for injury. Do you need me to call an ambulance? I'm fine. No ambulance needed, she chuckled. Are you sure? Sean asked. Why are you on the floor? Why are you covered with frosting? He helped her stand up. I'm fine too, in case anyone was wondering, said Samantha as she stood. Nobody was, said Paulina with an attitude. You made this mess, didn't you? We both made this mess, said Alina, and we were both cleaning it up. Isn't that right, Samantha? She offered the broom to Samantha, who sighed, took the broom, and said, Yeah. Miss T grabbed a towel and started wiping off the counter. Here, let me get that for you, said Sean. He pulled the trash can closer, grabbed a towel, and started sweeping items into the bin. Oh, thanks, said Miss T. Here, said Paulina. She pulled Miss T over to the sink, wet a towel, and started to wipe her face. So, is someone going to tell us what happened? Duh, we had a fight, said Samantha. The cupcake fight of the century, said Miss T as she looked at her sister with a smile. Samantha smiled back and continued sweeping. Well, you can tell me all about it while we clean, said Paulina. I'm not leaving you here to clean this up by yourself. Yeah, I'm helping too, said Sean. No, you guys, this is my mess, said Miss T. Please don't cancel your plans because of me. I didn't have any plans tonight, said Paulina as she grabbed another towel and began cleaning the cupboards. And there's no other place I'd rather be, said Sean. He walked over to her and wiped some frosting from her hair. You guys are such good friends, thank you, said Miss T. She walked over to her sister who was staring down at the ground. Hey, you don't have to stay and clean if you don't want to. I'm giving you a get-out-of-jail-free card, she said with a smile. Why? So that you can bash me for making a mess and not cleaning it up? I don't think so, joked Samantha. Miss T gently wiped Samantha's face with a towel and smiled. Okay, let's get to work, said Miss T, because I can already feel my shoes sticking to the ground. Ew! Chapter 10. The next morning at the cafe, Samantha sat at the counter, happily chatting with Miss T while she worked. You know, I found frosting in my boots this morning, said Samantha. She took a bite of her scone. Well, at least you got it all out of your hair, chuckled Miss T. Yeah, but I had to wash it like 4 times, said Samantha. Is there a good hairdresser around here? Honestly, I've never tried any of them, said Miss T. Really? Asked Samantha. She sipped from her teacup. Why not? Because I usually do my own hair, said Miss T. Because I don't trust anyone. Remember that time someone convinced me to let them put red highlights in my hair? Samantha choked on her drink. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. It's like you somehow blocked out all of the memories of the bad things that you did to me, said Miss T. Paulina would have a field day with this case study. She chuckled and turned to walk away. Samantha reached her hand out to stop her sister. Lily, Alina, I know it's probably too late, but I'm sorry for being such a horrible sister, Samantha said earnestly. I was going through my own stuff and I took it out on you. I held a grudge against you, not because of anything you did, but because of how other people made me feel and other stuff too. Anyway, I'm really sorry. Thanks. I'm sorry for not speaking up, said Alina. All this time, I thought you just hated me and there was nothing I could do to fix it. And we've rarely talked over the years. You know, for a while when we were kids, I actually tried to do things to get you to like me. You did? Asked Samantha. Like what? Well, I made your bed every day, said Alina as she leaned on the counter. Really? I always thought that was Mom, said Samantha. And whenever it was my turn to choose dinner, I would always pick the foods that were your favorite. No way, said Samantha, hitting the counter with her hands. I thought that you just liked the same things as me. Of course you did, Alina murmured. And maybe you don't remember this, but I was the one who took care of you when you got mono, which was no easy task, by the way, she chuckled. Now that I remember, you totally deserve an award for that one, said Samantha, or at least a job offer from the CDC. They laughed. Samantha's phone rang and she answered it. One sec. Hello, she said. Oh, hi. Really? No way. I'll be right there. Okay, bye. She put the phone down on the counter and took a quick sip of her tea. Good news? Asked Miss T. She stood up. Great news, said Samantha. My car's ready. The mechanic brought it for me. He's outside. She stood and quickly went to the front door. Paulina walked to the counter with her tray. Where's she running off to so fast? They both stared at the door. The mechanic is here with her car. It's all fixed, said Miss T. That's good, right? Means she can finally get out of your hair, said Paulina. Yeah, said Alina. She looked down at the cup and plate on the counter. Unless you don't want her to leave, do you? Alina crossed her arms and sighed. We only started talking last night. Finally, I just think we need more time, you know? Mr. Coffee entered the shop and walked right up to the ladies. Morning, he smiled. Saw your sister outside with the mechanic. So she's about to leave town now, huh? Is it wrong that I kind of want her to stay a little bit longer? Asked Miss T. Maybe she will. Paulina placed her hand on Miss T's back and tried to reassure her with a smile. Maybe she'll stay for a few more days to spend more time with you. Samantha quickly came bouncing back to the cafe counter. Hey guys, my car's fixed. Yes, said Samantha joyfully. That means you, she pointed at Mr. Coffee, no longer need to be my personal driver. Unless, of course, you want to be. She winked at him and he looked away quickly. Paulina chuckled and said, Congrats, Samantha. Will you be hanging around for a few more days? Oh, no way. I've wasted enough time in this town. I'm out of here. She started collecting her things. Oh, said Miss T. When are you leaving? Today, said Samantha. She took one last bite of her scone. Today? Repeated Alina. Yeah, why not? Said Samantha. She turned to Miss T and said, Listen, I'm going to run to your place and grab my stuff. Ooh, could you make me some sandwiches that I can take with me on the road? Miss T looked at her in disappointment. Samantha paused and said, What? Oh, please. She smiled and swung her sister's arm playfully. You mean you're leaving now? Asked Paulina. Yes, I'm taking advantage of this daylight to get as far as I can go, said Samantha. She took one last sip of her tea. "Where are you headed?" asked Mr. Coffee as he crossed his arms. "Miami," said Samantha. She looked at Alina shyly. "Miami?" repeated Alina. "You're looking for him, aren't you?" Samantha looked away and nodded. So can I have your keys so I can go to your house and grab my stuff?" Samantha looked at Alina and pleaded, "Please? I'll bring it back when I come for the sandwiches." The sisters locked eyes for a long moment. "Sure," said Miss T. She reached for her coat, removed the keys from the pocket, and gave it to Samantha. "Thanks," said Samantha with a sigh. "I'll be back." She started walking away, but then she paused, turned, walked back to Alina, and gave her a long hug. She pulled back, and the sisters stared at each other, seeming to have a silent conversation. Finally, Samantha pulled away and left the cafe. Sean stepped closer to Miss T and asked, "Alina, are you all right?" "What was that all about?" asked Paulina as she stepped closer. "Who's in Miami?" Miss T paused, then looked at the front door and said, "Our Father." The end. I do hope you enjoyed part 2 of The Case of the Evil Twin. If you'd like to hear more bedtime tea stories, be sure to subscribe and explore more episodes in our One More Steep Before Sleep podcast playlist. Until next time, sleep well, jolly tea drinkers, and may your cups overflow with joy and peace.